I am super excited about this opportunity to teach. Sterling is my great friend. He and I met in 2013, but a little bit about Sterling that you should know. He is the author of 7 On-Court Strategies to Enter Your Play State. One thing that I really appreciate about Sterling is how highly collaborative he is, and that's part of the reason why he's here helping me out with this webinar. So, all right, now Sterling gets to introduce me.
This is Bill Patton. He almost needs no introduction if you have read one of his books. I mean, come on. I mean, this guy, he's been around tennis for a long time. We met back in 2013 at a backyard barbecue. It was just sort of a place where we both ended up. And it was quite an interesting meeting. The first question that Bill asked me when he met me was, how do you feel about cheating in junior tennis? Talk about, right in your face. But I'm like that. I'm great. Bring it on. And it happened to be that I had just written a blog post on that subject. So it was a very timely question, and Bill didn't know it. I didn't know it, but that began the East-West collaboration that Bill didn't really know anything. He wasn't too keen on it at first, but he was like, I don't know about that. But it ended up, we have helped each other writing books, and Bill was helped me tremendously on my first book, which went #1 the first day. So thank you, Bill, for that on
Awesome.
Amazon. And so, yeah, that's a little bit. So we have a long relationship. We've traveled together, spoke at conferences together. And, it's interesting because, when you get to know each other, outside of the internet, it's quite amazing, what you can find out about the heart of a person. And Bill certainly has a heart for coaches and players and anyone involved in tennis. So that's why I'm here supporting him today.
Okay, so, and the final word in introduction was Sterling referenced this thing about how he had this inspired moment about, hey, I feel like there's some synergy here, and we're going to have this thing going. And he didn't realize I was planning my exit from coaching tennis. So I was like, nah, I don't think so. Welcome to everybody. Really super excited that you're here. Dave Fish, Andrea Barnes, Peter, I don't know your last name, but if you could just put in the chat, where are you from? And then what's one piece of information that you would like to get from this? What are you looking to get from this webinar? Because what the theme of it is major misconceptions that people have about vision in tennis. And so we're going to do some myth busting today. And so we're going to get started with misconception #1. And this is so Sterling's kind of like riding along because he's got the stories and we banter back and forth and that makes it more fun. All right. Misconception #1 is that people think they are seeing the ball coming out of the racket and they really aren't. Because what I've noticed from just about 100% of the people who step on the court with me, from beginners to 4, 5, and even 5-0 level players, is that they think they see the ball coming out of the strings. And when we really focus on that for a very short while, it's like a revelation to them. They realize for the first time that they haven't really been doing that. And so, Sterling, you want to tell your story about Pierce?
Yeah, so when you first launched that video, I had Pierce watch it. And Pierce is my 13-year-old son. I mean, he's training like 20 hours a week. So he's training to be a high-level player. And so I asked him to watch the video, and you talked about seeing the ball come out of the strings of your opponent's racket. So Pierce like, yeah, Dad, I do that. I do that all the time, right? So I go, okay, well, let's go out on the court today and let's try it, right? Let's see what happens. So we go out, we rally, we play some points for about 10 minutes. And I called him over there. I go, hey, Pierce, are you seeing the ball come out of my racket strings? And he goes, oh my God, Dad. Like, I thought I was doing it, but I wasn't, I wasn't doing it as much as I thought. So then he started to realize, wait a minute, there's a lot more to this idea of seeing the ball or finding the ball coming out of your opponent's racket and really being conscious of that. So it was pretty funny.
Yeah, and finding is a great word because it's the right word. I mean, one thing that comes into this too are the meanings and connotations of words, because finding, it does two things. A, it's interesting to find things, and B, the location of the ball goes through the pathway that goes more quickly through your brain. So when you're finding the location of the ball, it's the fast, no thinking brain. But when you try to discover what is it, when you try to analyze, then that's slow. That's going to be the slow thinking. Misconception number 2, people use focus too early, or pinpoint vision, or they don't pick up the ball until very late in the flight. And sometimes that's because they obsess about the outcome of their shot or their technique. This technical focus the tennis world is obsessed with is counterproductive to people hitting the ball. Sterling, you had a little something to say about, what were some of your comments about what people do?
It's funny because I ask people, go, so they hit their shot, and I notice they just don't reset quickly enough. And I go, hey, were you admiring your shot? And it's like 100% of the time, yes, I was looking at my shot, right? And I was admiring the beauty of that, top spin into the corner. And I was admiring you running to it. And then now they're stuck.
Yeah.
I mean, this is great to hear. That's exactly something that I'm struggling with my son, so I'm glad I'm in this webinar.
Awesome. All right. So here's what we're going to do. We have a very tight schedule here, and we got it packed with info. So I'm keeping people muted. So shame on you, Ravi. I hope you're happy. But if you have a question, if you could type that in the chat, that'd be great. And then we'll try to work those in. And also, we are having a question and answer and comment and say whatever you want period at the end. So please save those, and we'll get through this thing more quickly, because it's a jam-packed 30 minutes. So now, like, another thing would happen would be somebody might have a shot, and it wasn't the stroke that they've been grooving, and it didn't happen perfectly. And so they have a moment of, oh no, I didn't follow through. And while they're processing that thought, the ball is traveling to the other side, and they now are not fully present with the moment of seeing the ball come out of the strings. The most important thing to do, instead of these other things, because people focus too much and they use pinpoint vision too much and they wait to pick up the ball, is to try to react immediately. Now, Vic Braden said that by the time the ball is out of the racket by 2 feet, your brain has passively calculated with 95% accuracy where it's going to land. So what that means is, and then there are little factors that play into that, like the wind, the court surface, how cleanly the opponent hit the ball that maybe you didn't detect, how heavy the conditions are on the day. Those can affect how the ball's flying on a day. The temperature can make a big difference. But within 2 feet where it's going, really. But what needs to happen, though, is that immediate reaction. And we don't train that very well. This is something that can be done. And recently, I've actually been doing some new research and been connecting with some of the top visual researchers in the world. And one thing that's a key element, especially in baseball, and I think tennis and baseball have some very interesting similarities, is that baseball batters have a store of memory of pitches that they rely on, because it's impossible to see a baseball well enough to hit it. It's the memory of former pitch of other average pitches that gives them the intelligence to be able to swing the bat. And I think the same is true, especially with return of serve in tennis. Misconception number 3, always be like Roger, right? So there's Roger on the left. Roger's perfect. Always do like Roger. You'll be okay, right? So what do we have there? Image number 1, eyes right on the ball, right at contact. right? Middle one hasn't quite made contact yet, but eyes right there with the ball, right? Third one, oh my goodness, that's so Roger. I love Roger, do it always like Roger. Okay, let's look at another of the greatest players in the world, right? In history, Serena Williams. Wait a minute, she's looking forward, ahead of the ball. What? Wait a minute. She's not looking at contact. The ball's past where she's looking. Uh-oh. And so, like, I see in tennis magazines, they'll show a picture of Roger and it'll have a green circle and it'll say yes. And then it'll show another player looking forward and have a red X and it'll say no. And then I look and I go, wait a minute, that's a Grand Slam champion. It can't be that bad. I mean, just because they're not Roger, but here's my pet theory is that Serena is pure dextral, and pure dextral players have a different strategy. And also, in my experience, about 50% of the would-be tennis population are pure dextral. And I don't think we teach them well. We tell them to be just like Roger, but that strategy will not work for them well. I was in Atlanta and I had a lady come to me. I was teaching a clinic with Brian Shepard, who I love, in Atlanta. And a lady comes to me 5 minutes before the clinic and she says, I have no depth perception. That's a hard thing to solve in 4 minutes as you're collecting to try to do a clinic, right? And I'm like, I hope I can help her. So I mean, it's intimidating because she wants an answer right now, or she's thinking that the clinic is going to be an abject failure because she has no depth perception. And what was it that helped her? Techniques that go with being pure dextral. Now think about it from a student retention growth of the game issue. If there are 50% of the people who are pure dextral and we don't know it, we can't identify them and we can't teach them, we've lost a lot of people, or we've doomed them to a lifetime of frustration, or coming up to a clinician 5 minutes before a clinic saying, I have no depth perception. So the course outlines that. Sterling, do you have anything to add on pure and cross dextral?
I would definitely say that this is something, you're going to go into in the visual course. This one thing changed my whole idea of how to evaluate players when I train them. I'm pure dextral. Pierce is cross dextral. I would have never known that if I hadn't have been on court with you and been in one of your seminars on court and watched you do this with players. So this is great. The course alone is worth this point right here, in my opinion, because if you don't know what your player is doing there with their eyes, you'll be so frustrated as a coach. That's one of the first things I identify. So this is a huge deal, finding out whether you're pure or cross dextral.
A last point on this one is that maybe the preeminent visual researcher trainer in the world has tested 100,000 athletes. That's a lot. And she discovered that no two of them have the exact same visual strength profile. No two out of 100,000. Another visual researcher said if people differ as widely as their fingerprints, that their visual experience of the world is the way in which people vary the most widely. But what do? We say, watch the ball. We say, keep your eye on the ball. And those are meaningless expressions. And so what we do is we sort of doom people to figure it out on their own. And if they can successfully figure it out on their own, they could be a tennis player, or they could maybe get past 4 or 5. So part of my contention here is that the two barriers of entry into tennis are becoming a legitimate tennis player in the first place. And then there just seems to be this asteroid field between 4.0 and 4.5. And the visual skills are what will take you there. So in piecing together my own experience as a player, I I began to really excel as I began to work on my own visual skills. And for a while there, I was one of the better 5-0 players in Northern California. So anyway, moving on. Misconception number 4 is to always be on. They keep telling themselves, focus, focus, focus. Coaches say, focus, focus, focus. And when do they say to stop focus? Never. There's a couple of things that I like to say on court that make absolutely no sense to most people. Don't focus and stop thinking. Yeah, we don't think tennis, we play tennis. Jim Lair, right? So some of you know the 16-second cure, right? And if you're not aware of it, then you go and research this. You can probably find it all over the internet. But Jim Lair is one of the greatest sports psychologists in the history of the world. And he came up with this thing called the 16-second cure, which is that you go through a decisive stage, and then you have a relaxation stage, and then you have a planning stage, and then you have a ritual stage, right? So, but it's in the relaxation stage that the magic happens, right? So, like, for instance, see, this is what people do. This is what people do. They try to do this all the time, right? Don't be Klaatu the robot, right? Instead, thank you, Dave. I see your smile right there. That's good. Instead, you want to do this. The letting down, it's the soft eyes in between points. It's the resting the eyes on the racket or the court or some inanimate object. Resting your eyes in between points is far more effective because you need rest. And so, in fact, there was a time when I was playing not so well and my doubles partner was trying to carry me and it wasn't going so well. I was a very heavy load. I was just in a bad mental spot. So he was trying to cheer me up, and I sit down on the changeover and I put a towel over my head and I just closed my eyes and I told him not to talk to me. I need 90 seconds of eyes closed, pure rest for my eyes and my brain. And then as a result of that, then I was able to play not so poorly that he could then carry us to victory. So sometimes it's like that. It's not a bolt from the blue and all of a sudden you're hitting lines all the time. You just can find a way to carry on and carry through it. Is everybody having fun? Give me a thumbs up if you're having fun. And if you're not on camera, put a thumbs up in the chat, because if this isn't fun, it's not even worth doing.
Yeah, Peter had a question, but Ravi helped him out there about how do you determine pure and cross dextral, which you have a video on it. I would say, I put up, just the 4 stages of 16 cure. They can look up that. I would say, go along with your resting, the idea of you not having to play your best to help your partner out. Same thing in singles. You don't have to play your best in the entire set. Some part of the set, you need to just maintain the status quo, be steady, and then you'll recapture some energy there. So it's that ebb and flow of energy, like you said, and you've got to have some period of relaxation, especially between points.
Okay, awesome. Misconception number 5 is that you have to look at the target with your eyes. And so the targets are in your imagination. Oh, it's Dave Smith. That's who that Dave is. Okay, you threw me off there for a second.
Boys.
You wrecked the webinar. Oh, man. Anyway, so one of the misconceptions is that you have to have the target in your vision. But in reality, much of your visual ability is in your imagination. And so when you're fully present with the ball here, then you really ought to be able to point to the target, which is so far in your peripheral vision, you can't see it. You are legally blind over there. In the course, I have some techniques on how to train that imagination. And there are some very specific things to do, because there's a very interesting mental issue that comes with attempting to hit targets. So I have a little something to read to you. Okay, so here we've touched on just a few of the major misconceptions people have about vision. And as you prepare your question, I'm putting an offer into the chat You know what? I might have to email this out to people. So you can get a free mini course on the top 3 visual mistakes that people make and how to solve them immediately without more time in the gym or a crazy diet. If you like the social media cards that I sent out, if some of you saw those little social media cards I was posting all over the place, if you're interested in those, I can share that with you. Those are amazingly effective and inexpensive. So I've been blown away by how effective those have been, and that's why probably most of you are here, because you saw those. So if you're interested in the digital cards, then you can contact me, and I would love to do that. All right. So now it's time for questions. So raise your hand if you'd like to ask a question, please. Did we get all the ones from the chat, Sterling?
Yeah, here you go. Peter has a question. How do you test the 2 types of vision?
First, you have to discover your dominant eye. And knowing your dominant eye is important because 80% of the information that you get visually comes through your dominant eye. Your hands like this and make a tiny little hole. And with both eyes open, no cheating. People will cheat at this. Sight a small object in the distance and close your left eye. Do you still see the ball? Okay. And then open that eye again and close your right eye. And with the one that you see, that's your dominant eye. Pure dextral is when you are right eye, and I know the camera switched around. This is my right eye, not my left. Haha. All right. So if you are right eye dominant and right-handed, then you are pure dextral. And if you're left eye dominant, like I am, and right-handed, then you're cross dextral. And there are people who believe that cross dextral players learn tennis easier than pure dextral. Are there any other questions?
So I had a question, if you don't mind me asking.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, like I said, Bill, we are reading through your book, and my son and me myself both are pure dextral. And one of the strategies that was outlined in your book is to focus, especially if you're a pure dextral player, you focus on tracking the ball after it's landed between that space and your racket. So we've been trying some of that in slow-paced drills. It's working, but the thing we are consciously also working on is, since he's a lefty and left eye dominant, we have tried to adjust his stance, especially to receiving serves, to be where his left eye is more facing forward. The stuff we are struggling though with is, especially if we are focusing on space after the ball has landed and him contacting, is he's still being late on fast-paced balls in matches. So I guess, is this something we continue to do and it will get better, or what do you say?
Okay, this is a great question because you're not going to get the answer you expected. All right, so we always, when we analyze the system of vision, we always start from the beginning, because you have to trace the earliest root of where a problem may have occurred. And with most of my players, it starts with the fact that they didn't see the ball coming out of the racket. They got lazy for a minute.
Correct.
And they stopped seeing. So that could be the solution. The solution could be that he hasn't seen the ball coming out of the racket. He's so focused on the end sequence that he's lost awareness of the beginning sequence.
Correct.
So have him see the ball come out of the strings, and then the next part of the thing is, after that's mastered, you have some level of mastery there. Then what you do is you go to decide quickly about your first step. I mean, what I teach my players is, you can tell whether it's a forehand or a backhand like that. So turn quickly, unit turn to get him to start getting into moving to the ball is huge, because then it will also help you measure how far you need to go. Then using tracking skills as the ball is a blur, tremendous research that shows how effective our brains are at reconciling the blur runs totally counter to what people intuitively think will help, which is having pinpoint or focused vision on the ball at all times. And then finally, then from the bounce, then you'll look at a place, you'll focus on a place in between the bounce of the ball and your racket, and there will be a tracking, a peripheral use of the vision to see the ball, like Serena Williams. Did I clear it up? Is there anything from that
No,
that was
I
unfair?
appreciate it. Like I said to Striling earlier, he likes to admire his own shots and then doesn't correct or get into position to anticipate the ball coming back. So that's something we've been consciously working on. The other
Yes.
thing I wanted to just quickly follow up. So me and him both wear corrective lenses for our vision. He inherited poor eyesight from both me and my wife. Would you recommend contact lenses to clear up the gap between, I mean, like I played cricket quite seriously, and I used to bowl fast and bat. And I
Yeah.
found that I picked up the ball a lot earlier when I was wearing contact lenses because I didn't have this gap between my eyes and the glasses.
You see what I just did?
Right,
Okay.
right.
So, that's a personal choice. There's a comedian that I like, and he had really thick glasses, and he said he went to the doctor to see about getting contacts, and they said they're going to be kind of thick. We might have to mount them in something. Thank you. Yeah, it means having glasses, right? Look into it. I wear glasses when I play, and I haven't thought about getting contacts. There are issues with contacts. So if you can find some good sport glasses that really work for you, great. I mean, I wear prescription sunglasses when I play. And so the whole idea of how to do glasses, there's such a wide range of people's opinions and not a lot of great science. So trust your eye doctor and experiment and see what works best. I think there must be some people out there that contact lenses are not working or are too abrasive to the eye for long periods of time of performance. So so that's my very long non-answer.
No, thank you. I appreciate it.
Sure. So, okay, one final question before we wrap this thing up.
Is there a difference, Bill, between dextral and non-dextral?
I'm not sure what you mean, but there's a very strong connection between your vision and your kinesthetic experience of the world. That
I think Dan asked that question. He would.
Okay. Well, there's pure dextral and there's cross dextral. Both visual types have a dextral connection. Did I answered that?
Yeah, that's right.
All right. Okay, that was a quick one. One more? Okay. So anyway, I really love it that you came on. I think this is going to happen again at some point soon. And I'm going to make sure that I get in contact with all of you to give you an offer for the free mini course. And then that'll lead you through some other stuff. And you'll get a one-time offer to take the entire course for $47 instead of $97. And I thank you all for your interest and your participation. The questions were great, and the conversation was awesome. Andrea, if you could send me a link to that person. Actually, I should probably save this chat. Actually, I will have this chat saved. So anyway, that's it. Sterling, do you have any final words before we say goodbye?
I mean, that's it. This is amazing. I mean, one of the reasons why I love to do this type of stuff with you is it goes along with exactly what I'm doing now, and also with Dan at the Art of Winning, where, you've got to get this stuff down, and it's such a strategic part of building your strategy and tactics. Because if you're not seeing the ball, you won't know how to develop strategy and tactics. So, which we're addressing in our masterclass coming up. So this was awesome. Thanks for allowing me to be a part of it today.
Thanks, everybody. Take care. Have a great day.